The Campbell Group has teamed up with PI Perspectives to offer listeners top-notch, affordable insurance solutions. Private investigators can get insurance for their business for as low as $305 per year. Apply now at piperspectivesinsurance.com and receive a quote back within 24 hours. Do you enjoy our podcast and the guests we bring you? Since 2019, Matt and his team have done their very best to give you amazing shows each week. If you feel like our show has helped you to be a better investigator, or maybe even inspired you to become an investigator, please let us know. We're looking for testimonials. Drop Matt an email with a recorded 20 to 30 seconds of you talking about this podcast. You can also email him something verbal about the website. His email is matthews@satellitepi.com. And if you really feel blessed for having this content, consider supporting Matt and our show by joining Investigator's Toolbox. You really have to see version 2.0. And at just 49 cents a day, it's a no-brainer. Satellite Investigations has launched its new website full of great new content. Matt and his team have released some great informative blogs. Make sure you log in to LinkedIn and follow Satellite Investigations for the latest content. Over the past year, our industry has been the target of foreign governments and agencies that have attempted to recruit unsuspecting investigators to gather intelligence or immediate expatriates. PI Perspectives is teaming up with the Federal Bureau of Investigations to get the word out about this ongoing crisis. If you've been contacted by an individual or company that might seem suspicious, please contact the FBI at tips.fbi.gov. You can also contact the New York field office at 212-384-1000 to report suspicious activity in any state. The link is also in the show notes. Even if you completed a job and it still doesn't sit right with you, you can report this activity. The only way to stop this trend is to work together. So let's do it. Welcome to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. Today on this show, we welcome the amazing Jerri Williams. Jerri is a retired FBI agent who started a podcast several years back. In November 2023, she celebrated episode 300 and welcomed FBI Director Christopher Wray. Matt and Jerri cover many topics, including the ongoing issue of foreign governments trying to hire private investigators. You are going to love this episode. Please welcome Jerri Williams and your host, private investigator Matt Spaier.
And welcome everyone to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today, I'm really, really excited and happy to welcome back a fellow podcaster, somebody who I look up to, has some amazing podcast episodes. The one, the only, Jerri Williams. I want to welcome you back to the program. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, it's great to have you. You just hit a huge milestone, 300 episodes of your show, right?
Yeah. And for somebody who created the podcast as kind of an afterthought, for a secondary purpose, the podcast has grown and has now become my major focus. And, you never know, you start a project and you never know where it's going to take you.
Next thing you know, William Morris is representing you, and I get to book appointments to get you, right?
I wish.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So FBI case file review. That is the program. I encourage everyone to go check it out. It's really, really an awesome program. And really the premise is folks that have been federal agents that are retired, talk about cases that have been adjudicated and gone through the process, and really highlighting how they were able to address that particular situation. How did you come up with that idea? Obviously, you're retired from the job as well.
Yeah. And I spent most of my career, 26 years, working for the FBI, working economic fraud cases. But in the last 5 years, 4.5 years of my career, I became the media rep or spokesperson for Philadelphia and started to really learn how important it is to shape the perspective or perception of the FBI in the mind of the public. And I love doing that, sharing FBI stories and highlighting things that the agents in Philadelphia were doing. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed it. So after I retired and I took another job in that area as media director for SEPTA, again, I just love sharing those stories of the people working at the public transit system. And I just decided, this will be something that I want to continue doing. And I knew a lot of FBI agents, retired agents.
Right.
And so I just started asking all of my friends to be on the show. And now it's grown
Yeah. Fast
to
forward,
a whole nother level, as they say.
right. You have some like kind of special guest for the 300 episode. I mean, you had multiple guests on, but you had somebody special. Tell me a little bit about that.
There was somebody special for my 300th episode, and that was current FBI Director Christopher Wray. What an unbelievable validation of the show and the purpose of the show, which of course my mission is to show the public, who the FBI is and what the FBI does. And when I reached out and asked if he would be a guest on the show, I really thought that, there's a probably higher than 50% chance they're going to say no.
Thanks,
and when they came back and said yes, I was just ecstatic, and really wanted to make sure that I did a good job and asked the questions that I thought my listeners, who were not just retired agents and are active agents, but law enforcement people in general, true crime lovers, people who just were concerned about what's going on with law enforcement in this country today. I wanted to make sure I asked the right questions.
Sure.
And I was really proud of the way it turned out.
Great interview. And listen, folks, by no means is it a fluff interview. You asked difficult questions. You were a bit tough on him at times. There were some of those. We're a little bit uneasy where we're going, what direction we're talking here. But
I pushed a little bit when it came to public perception, because I think, I think that sometimes when you hear rumors or negativity, you take the high road. Everybody talks about taking the high road and not, engaging with that. But there are some times when I think you do have to engage and set the record straight.
Yeah.
And, we just can't throw off, those people, we don't care about what they think, because it's like an infection that can spread. And at some point, you got to stop putting Band-Aids on that sore and go in there with a scalpel and cut out the bad part. And, that's one of the things that concerns me, how far reaching is this, and how can we get back to, the good stuff, the positivity about what the FBI does. I want to make sure that we stay there, that we don't, let other people tell our story.
Sure. Yeah. And the way news is these days, the narrative can change so quickly.
Yes.
And if you don't say anything, people are going to assume, because I saw it on CNN or I saw it on Fox or I saw it on, it must be true. Right. Yeah, and there's no response to it. Right.
And I guess, and again, as a former media director, I mean, I did that professionally full time for a total of 12 years.
Wow.
I know how important that is. Yeah. And I am not in any way going to be a person who comes out in social media and defends the FBI. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to give you the true stories, the true facts, and allow you to make your own determination. And if I do my job well, I do my mission well, then people will know who the FBI is and what the FBI does.
Sure. So of this 300 episodes, and there are quite a few, couple repeats here and there, but not many.
Not in the 300. I probably have 310.
Yeah.
And so those 10 are the bonus episodes and the repeats. So no, there's 300 brand new, episodes.
Nice. I remember hearing Jimmy Gagliano, I think at least twice.
Yeah, he was on twice. Oh, I see. You mean repeats of people, but different stories. Stories. Yeah,
definitely different stories. Yeah, 100%. What of those 300? Is there anyone that's other than the most recent one that was really memorable to you when you're like, wow, that really blew my socks off?
There are so many. Now, I did do a re-edited version of the episodes that I thought really made me realize what my mission was. And that was episode 57 and 58. It was a two-parter, and it was the case agent, Eddie Fryer, telling the story, the true story of his investigation of the poly class abduction case.
Right.
And it was the one where, he was crying at points and I was crying at points because of the emotional connection he had to that case and how important it was for him to try to find Polly before, alive. And the pressure that was on him, not just from the office and the family and the public and internally himself, all of that pressure. And I thought, this is what law enforcement is about. This is the side that people don't see. Right. And, this is what's weighing down and causing what we're hearing now are mental issues and suicidal thoughts. And way back then, this was probably in 2017 that I did that episode. That's when I realized how much more this show could be than just a true crime podcast.
Yeah, there's definitely more than just true crime. There's real elements to it. There's real, personal. I know, like for me, and I'm not going to throw out episode numbers. I'm not that big of a fanboy.
I'm not even prepared to do so, but even though I want to.
There are three subject matters, and I don't even remember the agents, but three subject matters that I thought were really cool. The one that stood out the most, I think, was you aired it around Election Day 2 years ago, because I remember I was waiting online to vote. And this was the gentleman who did like children, crimes against children, sex crimes against children.
Right.
And it turned out like his own relative had been guilty of doing that. And it was so compelling. I remember I'm waiting online because I was online for like over an hour to vote. And I was like, wow, this just blew my socks off, man. I was like, so.
Oh my God. Now I have to, because I've done so many and because I am 66 years old, my mind doesn't work as well. So even though I know which episode you're talking about, because that's the one I really enjoyed too, because it was also about investigative skills. And he introduced the concept of a conversation with a purpose.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. And I love that thought of, instead of interview or interrogation, you're having a conversation with a person, who could be an adversarial subject, but you want it to bring it to the level where it's a conversation with you having a purpose of getting information. Yep. And you have to do and say and be whoever you can in order to make that happen. So I'm gonna look it up while we're talking.
Look it up. Maybe we'll throw it in the show notes. So that one, I remember I actually went to my staff, the guys who work for me, and I was like, you need to listen to this episode because there's some really good nuggets here on interviewing techniques. Some really good information. So that was one that stood out. There was another one that stood out which revolved around 9/11 and the work that the FBI did after 9/11, as far as like the recovery of remains and things like that. That was
Richard Marks. I remember that episode. Yeah, that was for the 20th anniversary of 9/11 that I did that. He's fantastic, a legend. He's still active. He hasn't retired yet, but I decided to, step out of my FBI retired case file review format and go get him because he's a dear friend. Yeah. And I just thought for the 20th, I wanted to have him.
Yeah, that was a very moving episode. And me being from New York, I was like, wow, this really hit home. And then the last one that really sticks out to me is the McMillions guys, with the McDonald's thing, listening to those guys and then going and watching the documentary, which I think that's the way I did it, or I may have done the other way. I think I watched the documentary first. And then they had the guys on. I was like, wow, this is cool because it's very relatable to me. Those were the three that really, really stuck out. But there's some other great ones that talk about 9/11. I think it was a different episode where they were talking about people up in Buffalo that were involved in
that's the Lackawanna.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. That was I enjoyed that one too. Jim Kyle, episode 215. Interviewing pedophiles, conversation with a purpose.
Hey, listen, we're not going to hold Jerri down. It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, Jim Kyle, that was really good. I had to tell you, one of my favorite ones And again, I'm old, so I'm going to have to look up the name of the agent who I know very, very well. I talk to all the time, but now I can't think of his name because I'm having a memory. But the episode was about skinheads, and it was where, oh, come on, Jerry, I can't believe I can't remember his name. But he had just heard this rumor. He and a detective on the task force in Wilmington had heard this rumor about two kids going to their prom with fresh web tattoos on their elbow, bragging that they had received them because they had shot a Black person.
Yeah.
And this had happened like 20 years ago. And they worked that case like nobody's business, trying to first find out if the rumor was true, going back to those people that had been at that prom, hearing this rumor or hearing this story, and trying to find out whether it was true, doing calendar work with the Philadelphia police to actually find a Black male that had been shot, that no one knew why or what was going on around that time period, and then getting the people involved to confess.
Wow.
And it's just an amazing story of just dedication to the case, where they didn't have to do that.
Right.
You know, it was a rumor, but they decided to go out of their way, you know, to solve this racially motivated murder that had just been floating around out there, and no one had investigated it.
Right. It's so crazy. I mean, there's so many stories.
I'm going to tell people that. Wait a minute. I'm going to have to tell people what the episode is.
Jerry's
and
on
the name
a
of the
mission.
agent. And the name of the agent, because I'm totally embarrassed that I can't remember his name.
Oh, it's all good.
His first name is Scott. It's coming to me. Scott Duffy.
There you go. So listen,
you probably know Scott Duffy.
I think I do.
And that was episode 179.
Wow.
It was amazing, and I'm actually doing my best to try to find somebody who's a podcaster who does long-term stories to do the story, because I think if they can get everybody involved to talk about, everybody from their different roles in there, I think it would make a great series.
I think you should talk to Javier Levia. I'm sure he
would
reach out to him.
Yeah. He does more of a pretend, which is the name of his podcast, people pretending to be someone else. He is right here in Raleigh. He's one of my best podcasting friends. So
are you part of the
shout out to Javier?
Do you have a part of he's got like a podcasting networking group? Do you ever go to any of those in-person meets?
Yes, I go to every last one of them. Podfest was just here on a tour, and I definitely was there with that, and think I'm going to go to Podfest at the end of January. I haven't been to a Podfest conference in a while, so I think I need to go.
That's so great. That's so great. We're going to jump out and take a quick break, and when we come back, we're just going to let's just keep celebrating your career and
thank you.
Talk more about it, and let's. I want to talk to the agents out there as well that are retiring, because I know you had run a PSA essentially saying, hey, if you have a story that you can talk about that's just been adjudicated, get in touch with me. Because there's definitely more content out there. So
lots of I know you want to take a break, but I'm actually booked until the end of March with stories. I've either already recorded them or have scheduled dates to record. But I want to make sure people know that there is no hierarchy. I'm not just selecting people. Oh, okay, you may come on this show. Yeah. If you have a story that you think would be good to tell, not just because of your own personal legacy and you want to talk about what you did, but because it will be a good thing for the FBI, for people to see the type of work that you've done, or you just have institutional knowledge that you want to share with law enforcement, then give me a call. We will make it work. We will get you on the show.
Awesome. So we're going to take a break. Everybody sit tight, and we will be right back.
Specializing in the research of liability for personal injury claims, Pacific Liability Research offers insurance assessments of all applicable liability coverages to help determine what a case is potentially worth. Have a case with no insurance policy? Since 2019, the highly trained staff on their insurance discovery team has located over 100 million plus in previously unknown insurance coverage. They offer a full refund for any inaccurate results, and they do not charge for no-hit searches. Additionally, Investigator's Toolbox members automatically receive 50% off their first case. Just mention Investigator's Toolbox when you fill out your first order. More information can be found at pacificliability.com. Contact them today and discover the immediate impact that Pacific Liability Research can provide.
I want to talk to everybody today about ScopeNow.com. ScopeNow has been a big-time sponsor of this program for quite some time, and I just love their service. I've been using them since the beginning. I'm one of their beta customers, and it's been so awesome to see them grow into the business that they are today, and just how they just keep reinventing themselves and pushing themselves to get more and more information. What it comes down to is ScopeNow is a tool that you definitely need to use if you do social media investigations, any internet research, and really spending less time digging around and looking for information. I think is one of the best points of how ScopeNow can help you. Their AI platform, their analytics are amazing. You really get an idea of what you need. You're reducing the time, you're reducing the manpower that you're spending on doing this research, because they're essentially doing it for you, and they're doing it correctly, which is most important. One of the new things that they're actually offering is this flagging system where you can flag behaviors and really highlight and look out for fraud. If you're doing a lot of fraud research, this is a fantastic tool, and you can set up alerts. So you have particular people that you're looking at, you can actually set up alerts to get notifications when the criteria that you set up is actually is flagged and goes off. It's really, really amazing. And their relationship and association analytics are top notch, really cutting edge and really, really cool. When they brought that out on version 3, it was a game changer. I mean, really being able to see how people interact together and having that relationship analysis is really, really something that's cool. One of the other things about being involved with ScopeNow is their ability to offer webinars. Their team is cutting edge on putting together and getting out really, really great content. If you're a member of ScopeNow, if you know who they are, you've seen them around on LinkedIn, you'll know that they're constantly doing webinars on these new websites that are coming out, and they're really staying on top of it. And don't forget, any reports that you generate, you can actually white label those reports and put your own logos on and really make them look professional, which could equate to more billing for you as well. So check them out today. It's www.scopenow.com. They're a great company. They should be one of the tools in your toolbox, along with whatever kind of search engines you do. You need to make sure that ScopeNow is a part of that suite. Scopenow.com.
Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Looking to get out of the cold weather and get some CE credits? The National Association of Legal Investigators have their Midwinter Conference in St. Pete, Florida this year from January 31st through February 2nd. Learn more at nallyonline.org.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we have the amazing Jerri Williams, FBI case file review. A retired FBI case file review, actually. Let me get that correct. Welcome back to the program, Jerri.
Thank you. This is fun.
Yeah, this is great. We're going down memory lane here with all these great stories. And, before we took the break, you had talked about, if you're an agent and you're, getting ready to retire and all that, and you have case to talk about, definitely get in touch. And we'll have all that in the show notes going forward. Before we got into the best of with your show, we were talking about PR in the FBI, and I think that's a very topical issue that's going on here. As a private investigator and being part of national associations, I'm seeing more and more on the state level but the FBI is actually reaching out to private investigators to speak with them and educate them with regards to foreign governments using private investigators as essentially agents. So from a PR standpoint, you would never think, like, the FBI, why would they reach out to us? But I see it more and more happening. So there's been a change in stance. When you were serving in a PR position with the FBI, was there like a standard policy or procedure with how you would contact like outside sources?
Oh, not really. I mean, definitely we would hear from the FBI headquarters, from the the National Public Affairs Association, about things that they would like us to concentrate on. But I don't remember anything that involved us reaching out to private investigators. This is something that's definitely new.
Right.
Before that, we probably were more in tune to reaching out and doing public service announcements to the general media to reach the public. But definitely things have changed, and especially when it comes to intelligence matters, to those type of issues. Things have changed a lot.
Yeah, I think a lot of that just has to do with technology, right? And people's ability to
social
communicate
media
with one another, social media, the bad guys, the bad actors getting a little more creative on how they do things. And you can't be everywhere all at once. It's just impossible. And I know the agents that I've spoken to on this issue, one of the things that's frustrating to them too is they get so many leads and they just don't know what's actionable and what's not, right? So it's like they're counting on these tips to be able to really point them in the right direction and focus on things that are actually actionable and not just, this was something that was kind of weird, but not really. So I know it's a frustration to at least to the agents that I've spoken with.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's one of the things that people have to understand is, the things that the FBI are involved in, the cases that are taken, all have to do with manpower and resources, and where we're going to put our priorities. And this one definitely sounds like it's a priority, because we certainly don't want loyal American citizens, especially those in private investigators, a lot of them who are former law enforcement. I mean, who would absolutely, stay away from or avoid helping outside, people outside the United States, spying here in the United States. And so it is something that definitely that is an issue that the FBI is looking out to other people to help them, warn everyone about. So
yeah, and it's not a matter of, hey, we're going to subcontract you to go do this surveillance for us, or we're going to do it. Like, there's none of that going on. And I know there were, at least I went to an event in Manhattan in February where we went actually down to Federal Plaza and we had the whole consultation, and there were people on the crowd like, hey, like, we could help you. We could do this stuff. Like, we are former law enforcement. We know what to look like. But the idea of that is, while, like, romantic, is just not realistic. It's never going to happen. Right. Yeah. It's more along the lines of when you get that phone call and somebody's soliciting you to do a particular thing that in your head, you're like, this doesn't sound right. They're asking me to, do something that I just don't feel right about. Of course, I'm going to say no to that job and turn away from it, hopefully. It's just taking it one step further and contacting your local agent and saying, hey, I was solicited for so-and-so, and this is the contact that came to me, this is how it came to me. Right. So that's that little thread that they want to pull on.
Right.
A little deeper.
And so, I don't know if you've mentioned that we're mostly talking about being hired to surveil somebody, and to bring back information, to the person that's hiring you, which is really kind of scary when you're hearing about foreign countries now coming into the U.S. to silence, people who are speaking out against abuses in other countries. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
that would be extremely frightening to have played a role in somebody being murdered here in the States
Yeah.
by a foreign, country, because you helped in that surveillance.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine feeling the responsibility of having played a part in that. So the
Yeah.
warnings are necessary.
Yeah, and there was a whole thing in Brooklyn, where there was a political dissident, who was very vocal anti in Iran, I think it was, like she was very vocal about, her positions on things, and they hired an investigator with some, matrimonial thing, this and that, and they had like the way the money trail went, like they hired a third party to transfer money, like it was really funky, to do things, and thankfully they were able to stop, like the investigator that was hired was able to make contact with the federal government, and they were able to keep an assassination attempt, because that's exactly what it was, from happening, which is nuts. And it ranges from all different things, right? It's not just assassination. It's, putting pressure. Hey, your family back home, they're not going to be okay unless you come back, something may happen to them, like that kind of stuff. And they're getting very creative. They're like, hiring or creating law firms, bogus law firms to hire you to do stuff that, you think you're collecting a judgment, locate to collect a judgment, but you're really locating for, another agent to go harass, So, if it sounds funky or feels funky, don't take it.
It's probably funky.
Don't do it. Yeah. And what happens is you get folks that are recently retired from law enforcement that don't really have that education on what to do, what not to do, the ethics of what's okay. And they got somebody showing up with a wad of cash saying, I'd like to hire you to do this. Well, you're getting your foot and your shingle just went up. You got to pay the bills. You got to do this and that, and you don't know any better, right? So this PR push that's coming from the FBI is more along the lines of just ethics, right? Educating. Hey, don't do this. If something comes across that doesn't look right, like don't do it. So I think that's kind of the focus that they're taking, which is super interesting.
Right. Don't do it. And if you are suspicious, report it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really the gist of it. Leave it to the team. And they may know about stuff already, and you're just strengthening their case as well. You don't know how it all fits in and comes together. So it's interesting to see how things are changing, and trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and we obviously have the best interest of our country, which is crazy. So you never know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. And I guess that, you say that about how things are changing. I joined the FBI over 40 years ago,
Right.
and so much has changed. And the podcast has allowed me to stay relevant.
Yeah.
To hear the stories of cases that are happening now, and to be in touch with active agents who are, working in the Bureau now. And I think you would think that because of technology, it has gotten easier, but I do think it's gotten tougher because of social media and things that are cameras and things that are out there. I think that law enforcement is as challenging today as it was back in my time.
Sure. Yeah. It's just different things that become more important or bigger precedents to look at there. So you want to talk about relevance and things that you've done and recognitions that you've gotten. You received a very prestigious award recently too. So let's talk about that a little bit. Tell me about that.
Okay, well, we'll only get to talk about my prestigious award if we get to talk about yours too, because it was the same year in 2021. You won that. Yeah, come on, let me just say it.
Investigator of the Year.
Yeah, you won Private Investigator of the Year by PI Magazine. So I want to congratulate you.
Thank you.
On your recognition too. But yeah, in November 2021, 2 years ago, I received the FBI Agents Association's Distinguished Service Award at their G-Man Honors gala event. And that's where I got to meet personally with Director Ray. And I believe one of the reasons that he agreed to come on the podcast. Because if you look, he hasn't been on anybody else's podcast.
No, that's a big get. Yeah, it's a big get.
Yeah, you can't count NPR or Fox News turning a news episode into a podcast episode. He has not been on anybody else's podcast, but he came on mine, and I have to say that it was because I truly believe because of the FBI Agents Association's recognition and support of FBI retired case file review.
Yeah. I mean, listen, what you do is it's a service, it's a service to the private community. It's a service to the FBI themselves. They should be cutting you a check.
Yeah. Let's talk to them about that. I call it a labor of love, but it is a labor because you know that podcasting is not a matter of just, scheduling an interview and sitting in front of a microphone and talking to somebody. There's a lot of work in preparation, for the interview. And there's a lot of work after the fact as far as editing and putting the episodes together.
Yeah. You take the hard way out. I hire somebody. Shout out to Joey. He's the best.
Well, I can shout out to Dan because, I have a person that goes through the first pass.
Yeah.
Of editing all of my episodes, which are usually long. They're averaging at least an hour, but some of them, this last one was an hour and 42 minutes.
Yes.
I edit that entire one. I edit all 3 of those because it was so important for me to have my touch on it. So Dan didn't get to do those, but usually I send it to Dan. He does a quick pass through, not necessarily a quick pass. Sorry, Dan. But he does a pass through, then he sends it to me and I go through it again because I'm so particular. I don't even like a breath. I don't like a mouth sound. I don't, so I edit it again because my guests come on and they tell a story. I try not to interrupt, and I try to let them just tell the case, give that case review, because I think once they get into the story and there's not a lot of interruption, they get deeper and deeper and they remember how they felt and what was happening and what was said. And so I try to do like we do when we do our investigative interviews, which is ask the question and then shut up.
Shut up. Exactly.
But I do a lot of prep ahead of time because I might be producing. You may not hear it. But there's a lot of times where I'm producing as we're talking and I'll stop the person and say, hey, you went over that real quick. Let's step back. And then I delete all of that stuff. All that stuff is edited out. But the reason I think that the interviews are so rich is because I work with my guests to pull out as much of that story as possible and ask them, what were you feeling? What was going on at the time?
Yeah.
I love stories.
I
love stories. I love telling them. I love reading them. I love sharing them.
See, for me, I love stories that way, hearing about them. I'm a terrible reader. I don't have time for reading. I know you have your book club. God bless you. It's just not something I'm such a busy person.
I'm an audiobook person. I will admit it is hard when, for me to sit down and read a book because my mind is going constantly. Yeah. So even if I try to sit down and just read a book, in the middle of it, there's going to be something that triggers a thought. Oh, I should do that. Oh, I needed to email that person. Or maybe I should. And so I'm an audiobook person. So I try to get out and walk. I did 4.5 miles today. I just get out, and while I'm walking, I'm reading. I'm reading. Yeah, I'm reading. It's an audiobook, but I'm reading books, and I try my best to do at least 2 books a month.
That's great.
Which I know doesn't sound like a lot. I would love to be able to sit down and read every day. I grew up reading, but you're right. Yeah, we're busy.
My kids read like crazy. Wow, they must get it from my wife. They can't stop reading, which is fantastic. When we don't do television in our house really, so it's that's their outcome. But I remember audiobooking Lord of the Rings on a cassette tape. And I remember driving around. I was out in the field just doing work all the time and just listening to these audio interpretations of all the Lord of the Rings books. And then I was like, oh man, this is so good.
Yeah, I actually just segueing,
Yeah.
going on a tangent for just a bit. I actually like audiobooks more because you can visualize and use your imagination more, as the person is telling you a story. And even better than that is I always get the audiobook and the ebook. And so when I do have time to sit there and read as the narrator is narrating the story, having somebody read a book to me is a lot of fun too.
Oh yeah, no, I remember going through my kids are much older now, but when they were younger, we'd go through the Lord of the Rings stuff, and I'd read to them and do like a chapter or something, and it was like you reading those.
Nothing better.
You hear in your voice because you've seen the movies or whatever. You think of particular characters. Gandalf. Okay, I know how Gandalf talks. You shall not pass. Like go through and doing like all that with my kids. It's fun. But we're totally going off on a tangent here.
Yeah, I know.
Let me rope us back in. Jerry's got a reading club, so if you're into it, by all means, please be a part of it. Which is another.
I have what I do is I have books that are written by the FBI agent who are on my podcast. They have the books about the FBI or FBI characters that are written by people that have been on my podcast. And I have over 80 books now on my FBI reading resource list. Yeah. And so people who do like to read, we're getting back to the topic, who do like to read and about the FBI can get that list of books, because I definitely want to promote the works of the agents that have been on my show.
Yeah, and one of the other things too is you comment on television and movies.
Yes, that's so much fun.
Right? So here's the BS and here's what's good. I mean, I used to love like Quantico and all that. It's not real,
What I try to do is I'm doing a a movie or TV review, not of the actual TV show or movie. What I'm doing is pulling out teachable moments about the FBI. Right. So the current one that I have sent out to my reader team is The Firm. Mm-hmm. And I did that because John Grisham just has the sequel to that out, The Exchange. And so I wanted to review the Firm. And in that review, I'm not really talking about the movie, but one of the things that I looked at for a teachable moment was, if you can remember The Firm, how his wife and his assistant were in the Cayman Islands and they stole the copies of records from his colleague, and they made copies and then they gave them to the FBI. Yeah. Well, my teachable moment is, who's going to authenticate those records?
Exactly.
And
not admissible.
And also because they left, they just gave the records to the FBI. Also, isn't a lawyer going to try to get that evidence suppressed?
Exactly.
Because was he acting as an agent for the FBI when they went in and stole that records? That's illegal. That is not, you cannot use that. So that's what I do, is I look at movies. I hope I'm not ruining the movie for our TV show for someone, but basically it allows somebody who wants to be in law enforcement or maybe writing a book about a crime novel to know that that's not the way it happens.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And that's a lot of fun. I started doing that way before I became a TV technical consultant, but that certainly is the way I got that job, and it's just a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I'm sure there's not like graduating class hookups at Quantico going on like they had on the TV show.
Well, I'm not so sure about that.
Well, they don't look like the characters that were on TV.
No, they don't. They don't.
It's not a Shonda Rhimes production.
No.
So yeah, it's cool. It's so funny, Jerry. You've done so much in your post career. All joking aside, you've really helped a lot of people. I think there's also some. It's a little bit cathartic, right, for these ex-agents to kind of get a chance to tell their story again, get it off their chest. It's something they're dealing with, and you do it in an environment and in a way it's very welcoming. and you had mentioned it earlier, and we'll get back to it, of just creating that comfort level for them to tell the story. Because as an interviewer, I understand what you're saying. Sometimes you just shut up, right?
Mhm.
Just let them go. And here and there, you got to throw something in just to let them know you're still there, or steer it in another direction. But it's so great that you offer this medium, to get this stuff out. It's really, really neat.
I can tell you there is not an interview that I've done where I haven't, and I joke on this last one I just released, I joke that I always say the word, "Oh, that's so fascinating,"
Yeah,
because I'm just fascinated by some of these, or all of them. I'm fascinated. There's always something that I learn from them. And you're right. I think for the agents who decide to come on, and sometimes I had to convince people, to come on. But the ones that do come on, they know they have an interesting story to tell. And it's like an opportunity to tell it without interference. I mean, there are TV shows that are out there that allow agents to come on and tell their story. But there's still going to be time restraints where, some of that stuff is on the editing floor. It's not going to be told because there's just not enough time, or maybe it doesn't fit the narrative.
So this is a good point, right? So the guys with McMillions, the way that show was edited, I remember when you had him on, he was like, well, didn't really happen that way, or it was a little bit different, and it kind of changed things a little bit. Like, to me, that was some fascinating. There we go. You get it from me, right? Fascinating that that they were able to do that. It's like, oh man, really? Okay, all right. I see what was happening here. You have to get it go. And oddly enough, I saw on CNN. Was it CNN? CNN's now showing that McMillions.
Oh, okay.
He was on HBO, but now I guess they've sold it to CNN, and it's going to be on CNN. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a really great.
Yeah, it's really good. And the main guy, the case agent, because I actually spoke to the supervisor. The case agent was still active. I don't know if he's still active now, but what a character! Yeah. And I kind of liked it in that sense because you always have this picture in movies and books where the FBI agent is just so cold and unfeeling, and in the black suit. And I mean, as you know, in law enforcement, there's some real characters, and we have our share definitely in the FBI, and it's nice to get that out there too, to people to see.
Yeah. It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
Jerri, I think we're going to wind down here. This was great. Thank you so much for coming on, and congratulations again on 300 episodes. That's amazing.
Thank you. I'm gonna keep telling stories and sharing stories until I can't get anyone else to come on the show. So
all right. Well, we're gonna put a link to the show in the show notes, obviously, and all the other cool stuff that Jerri does. I encourage everyone to go check it out. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thanks again, Jerri, for being here, and we'll see everybody next time on the next show. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Jerri for being an awesome guest as usual. Congrats to her again on 300 episodes. It's worth a listen. We want to thank Campbell Insurance Group for sponsoring our show. Remember to tell them you listen to save $50 when you apply for insurance. Additional thanks to Scope Now, Pacific Liability Research, and the BI Institute for Education. Thanks for sponsoring our podcast. Also, don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com new year 2024. You can type in version 2.0 25% to save $50 when you join it. And please follow Matt at Satellite Investigations on LinkedIn. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com, and you can find him on Instagram and Facebook as well. We'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. We will be back next week with a new show, so make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.